Mm. I think it's your initial story in your introduction where you're kind of walking through your day and talking about, it almost feels like you're talking about all these pressures building and trying to escape them or find relief from them. I related to so much. Like I was reading it and I was like, that's exactly what I do. Like I just tried to get out from under um the kids or the deadlines or whatever it may be. Um, do you think when we're talking about this kind of longing for relief and this building of pressure or burden, do you think that that is a problem that is just of our day and age, or is it a kind of an age old problem? Maybe it's been repackaged a little bit, but the way that we talk about those things does seem to be very relatable to the way we live our lives today. So I'm curious if you see it as kind of, um, yeah, an issue of our culture or just a human issue in general.
Well, I think it's a human issue.
Yeah,
I think it's only there because this is how we operate, and there would be pressures that you would live under in 13th century Spain. They'd be different. I think that there does feel like something. One of the reasons I wanted to write the book is that although I can intellectually know that human beings have always craved relief and grace, we've always craved the relief of grace. My experience as a 45-year-old is of a treadmill getting faster. And so I want to say intellectually, I know that we're not, there's nothing, everyone believes they're at the unique point of history. Every
sure. Yeah.
generation has always believed that. And I want to avoid that pitfall, but I also want to acknowledge that when I hear that contemporary parents spend on average 40% more time with their children than a generation previous did, like, where's that time coming from? It's
Yeah.
like there does seem to be escalating demand on people. Financial demand. I mean, talk about it, like inflation. Try
Mm-hmm.
buying a
Mm-hmm.
car these days. Like it's not what it felt like when I was
Or
eight,
eggs.
18. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we can go there, but so there's something. The hinge point there might have been ways to talk about grace in previous times that positioned it in other kinds of ways, and would foreground different elements of what it means to be like the judgment of God pressing down on you, for example. Like that, I
Yeah.
think that a peasant in 16th century Germany, for example, would have felt, or a monk
Mm-hmm.
certainly, in a way that I'm not sure like a businessman in Manhattan today would. However, do
Yeah.
they feel the weight of judgment and justify themselves and to um, provide more than their parents did while also being more present with every single relationship? That is, I think that's true. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm trying. I even try it in the outset not to say that we live in a uniquely merciless or unforgiving time, even though it feels that way.
Yeah.
Uh, but that doesn't mean we don't live in a very merciless and unforgiving time. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the language you're using um, is great for our time, even if it's been used before. And even like you said, either the judgment we feel, the accusation we feel from the law is obviously always still there, but maybe just manifests in different ways. So um, you so you start the book with your first chapter is just on grace, and then you kind of go into all of these other aspects that you see are kind of as a part of grace. Can you kind of walk us through, I guess, like the way the book is organized and these different kind of facets that you identified as ways in which we find relief and what they offer relief from specifically?
sure. Well, yeah. So I took as my conceit or the organizing principle as being a way to catalog the various pressures that we live under, that I live under. In the same way seculosity tried to do this with replacement religions, I thought about, well, I feel the pressure to improve, or I feel the pressure of the past, or and regret. I feel the pressure to produce, and so I wanted to. I wanted to catalog the different pressures and the way
Mm.
that I think grace, the different sort of, like, if grace is like a diamond, the different faces of the diamond. Um, so yeah, I begin by talking really more in terms of sort of, I want to define grace a little bit more and say that we all feel the pressure to deserve what we get
Mm.
in life, and that's almost unspoken. Like no one says,
Right.
I'm really struggling with the pressure to deserve. It's like, no, like that is simply to be alive.
Right.
Um, but then I sort of I wanted to highlight how like, if you're struggling with guilt, grace often is going to you're going to feel like atonement has the atonement is sort
Mm.
of where grace will come alive for you. Like if you're in prison, for example, and you hear about the God who suffered or stands in your place, like that's going
Yeah.
to really come alive for you. If you're a person who's obsessed with status and feels like that they're just needing to justify themselves all the time and climb some ladder, well, then imputation is going to be an aspect of grace that's going to, I believe, is going to appeal to you. It appeals to me in that space. If
Mm.
you're a person who feels rejected and lonely in life, which is many people, then the fact that when we talk about unmerited favor, I'm gonna emphasize the favor part of that.
Right.
Um, and so on and so forth. I think the pressure to produce is a big one today, and so I talk about play as being is basically a euphemism for freedom.
Mm. Mm.
Um, and then the ultimate thing that I think that grace is, God is interested in rescuing the captive, people who are captive to sin and death, and that's
Yeah.
the final chapter. And the fact that we have a savior is a form of grace, and so
Mm.
that's where it ends. There's other aspects that I didn't even mention, but um, I had to have a organizing conceit, and I wanted it to be the sort of thing where it's, if someone says, well, I've never committed any crimes, life has basically gone according to plan. I don't really identify with this, penal substitution stuff. It's like, well, okay, fair enough. Maybe one day you will. Right now, though, do you feel lonely and unloved? Like that might be a
Mm-hmm.
place for you to
Yeah.
enter in. Do you have any regrets about the past, things you wish you'd done differently? Let's talk about that. Like, and how forgiveness might have something to say to you.
I'm sure we've talked about this before. I think you kind of write about it in the conclusion, but um, is there a need to make, in your mind, make a distinction between God's grace in the sense of his disposition of unmerited favor towards us and the way that we experience that, or the way that its effective quality, I guess, is that, because that is certainly, I think when it comes to relief, that is something that you feel, right? Like it is something that is felt. And I think this is a conversation sometimes around, a theological conversation of like, is it real if you don't feel it, or how do you know it's real?
Mm.
I don't know, that might be a very convoluted question, but I'm just kind of curious your thoughts on that. Why in your mind is this feeling an important part of how God's grace operates?
Well, I understand the anxiety around tying the doctrine of grace too closely to a feeling of any kind. We want to know that something is true first,
Mm.
and whatever subjective power it might have derives from the objective truth of it. Like I understand that. And I co-sign that. I mean, of course,
Yeah.
that's to me true. Something's not true because it feels good. But that can become I've watched it become a way of divorcing uh, faith from your actual life. And
Yeah.
the way that people live is not in their heads. People live
Yeah.
in their hearts. And that's where the action is happening. So if I want to make a compelling case for the Christian faith in the contemporary world, I want to be emotionally intelligible as well as intellectually plausible. And I think a lot of Christians don't care about, or at least especially frankly, especially men, like it's seen as untrustworthy
Mm.
and a little scary. Um, be, yeah. So I think the real action that happens in life and is happening in the heart and in the emotions. So a book that doesn't go there is going to just remain on the surface of things.
Yeah.
So but I try to surface that. Like I think like if this is really at the heart of who God is, and and it's not something that ever touches down in our lives or we never catch glimpses of, then what are we talking about? So
Right. We're talking about definitions then.
we're talking about total abstractions.
Yeah.
And so that is very important to me I don't think it's zero sum.
Yeah. I agree.
We'll put it that way. I don't think it's zero sum. It's been presented as zero sum oftentimes in order to safeguard against the ways that